After devoting 2 decades of his life to serving in the Marines, he was a courageous and fearless soldier who witnessed the atrocities of war firsthand. He yearned for the sense of purpose and camaraderie that he experienced in the military, but he faced difficulties when transitioning to civilian life. Frank's struggle to adapt was further exacerbated by his lack of prior financial management experience. He found himself in constant financial hardship, always concerned about making ends meet. Over time, Frank became increasingly isolated and plagued by loneliness. He struggled to connect with others, turning to alcohol as a coping mechanism for his feelings of isolation and stress. Unfortunately, this only worsened his situation, and Frank found himself spiraling out of control. Eventually, Frank lost the housing he had patiently waited 6 years to obtain. He became homeless, surviving on the streets with only the clothes on his back and a few coins he managed to beg for each day. Frank felt like he had hit rock bottom, unsure of how to regain stability. He aimlessly wandered through the familiar streets of his hometown, his thoughts trapped in a loop, reliving a particular day from his past, the day he lost a fellow soldier during a critical mission. The memory haunted him, and he struggled to escape its grip. Alcohol became his temporary refuge from the pain. As he passed by a row of shops, his attention was drawn to a vibrant hair salon that stood out against the gray backdrop of the street. Catching a glimpse of his reflection in the window, Frank came to a sudden halt, momentarily stunned by what he saw. The image staring back at him bore no resemblance to the soldier he once was. His hair was unruly and unkempt, and his overgrown beard obscured his features. Frank was overwhelmed with a profound sense of shame, realizing how far he had fallen. He had become one of the countless forgotten homeless veterans left to fend for themselves, forsaken by society. Continuing to gaze at his reflection, a surge of determination washed over Frank. He recognized the need for change, to reclaim his dignity and start anew. However, the path ahead seemed uncertain, and he questioned whether he possessed the strength to face it. Clutching a few begged coins tightly in his hand, Frank hesitated outside the hair salon, unsure if he could muster the courage to enter. Unfortunately, he was met with scornful glances from the staff, one of whom wrinkled her nose and commented on his odor. Frank felt a deep sense of embarrassment and shame as he attempted to explain his situation. "I apologize for my appearance and smell, but could you please give me a quick buzz cut?" he asked softly. Olivia rolled her eyes and shook her head. "Sorry, buddy, but we're not a charity here. Maybe you should search for cans in the trash instead," she replied, pointing to a nearby bin. Feeling embarrassed and disheartened, Frank turned to leave the salon. Just as he was on the verge of leaving, he overheard one of the girls snickering and whispering to her colleague. "What a loser," the girl said loud enough for Frank to hear. "I can't believe he even thought we would let him in here looking like that." The other girls joined in laughter, amplifying Frank's sense of shame. Taking a deep breath, he fought back tears as he walked away from the salon. He couldn't shake the feeling of not belonging in this world anymore. Despite dedicating himself wholeheartedly to his country, this was how he was treated, an unrelenting reality he faced daily. Frank refrained from responding because he saw no point in reacting to something he had grown accustomed to. As he stood outside, a young girl approached the salon. Rachel took one glance at Frank and thought, "Nice hairstyle, sir." He must have already had a haircut. "Thanks, but I don't really like it," Frank chuckled as he passed by her. Rachel was perplexed. "Sir, you just came out of our salon. Would you like to have your hair redone?" Frank paused and looked at her, a smile forming on his face. "For a while, thank you, sweetheart. Your friends didn't have time for me," Frank said, trying not to blame them. Rachel found his response strange, considering there were 2 available hairstylists. "Sir, come on in. I'll fix your hair," Rachel offered, stepping by Frank's side. Feeling compelled to share what had truly transpired, Frank felt a sense of obligation. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, sir. I just got to work. Let me give you a nice cut to make it up." "I'm full of energy right now," Rachel said apologetically. Rachel smiled, "I'm sorry, honey, but I can't even charge you. I only have a quarter and a dime. Do you think you could settle for a buzz cut?" Frank replied, "Sure, sir. Come on in. I can give you a buzz cut if that's what you want. However, I think I can give you something else that you'll truly appreciate." With a smile, Rachel asked Frank to enter the salon, holding the door open for him. They walked inside, catching Olivia's attention, who let out a slight groan. "Oh, here we go again," she thought to herself. Oblivious to Olivia's reaction, Rachel approached the receptionist, Tina, and greeted her warmly. "Hey, Tina, can you please call the lady who had a 10 o'clock appointment and ask if she can come later, say around 11:20? Rachel requested cheerfully. Curious, Tina inquired, "Why? What happened?" Rachel replied, "I've got a client here." Rachel glanced at Frank, while Tina scanned him from head to toe. "We kicked this guy out just before he came in. What did he tell you to convince you to do his hair?" Tina asked, her tone skeptical. "Hey, Tina, take it easy, alright?" "Jesus," Rachel replied, removing her jacket. Tina laughed, "Rachel, you sound like you know this bum. Why do you even care? Or is he your father?" Rachel looked up at Tina, feeling her anger intensify. But then she reminded herself to maintain control and not stoop to Tina's level. She sighed and said, "Sure, what if he is my father? What then?" Frank stood there, uncertain of what to do. He didn't want to cause any trouble or have them call the police. He simply wanted to leave. Just then, Olivia emerged from another room and spotted Frank standing there. She questioned, "What are you doing here? Didn't I tell you to stay away from here?" Rachel turned to Olivia, slightly surprised, and greeted her, "Oh, hi, Olivia. How are you?" She attempted to engage in small talk. Olivia put on a fake smile and replied, "I'm fine, thanks," before returning her attention to her magazine. Sensing the tension in the air, Rachel decided to ignore Olivia and focused on her client. The other girls continued their unpleasant comments, and Rachel tried to reason with them, but it only escalated the situation. Frank could see Rachel becoming increasingly upset and apologized for causing trouble. "I'm so sorry, Rachel. I'm just going to leave. I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. Thank you so much." Frank stood up, ready to depart. However, Rachel quickly intervened, "No, sir, you have done nothing wrong. These girls need to learn some manners and not judge people based on their appearance." Rachel raised her voice, directing her frustration towards the girls. "You guys are pathetic. I can't believe I've been working with you." Rachel grabbed her jacket in anger and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. "Rachel, my dear, I apologize deeply for what happened," Frank expressed with remorse. "It's only been 2 weeks, sir, it's not a big deal. I'll manage, and I'll make sure you still get a haircut," Rachel reassured him, determined. They left the salon, and Rachel suggested going to her place, where she could give him a nice haircut. After Rachel finished cutting Frank's hair, she proposed, "You can take a shower and relax for a bit." Frank hesitated initially but eventually agreed, feeling grateful for Rachel's kindness. As he enjoyed a warm shower, a sense of overwhelming relief washed over him. "Wow, this feels amazing," he thought to himself. When Frank stepped out of the shower, he was surprised by how much better he looked with a fresh haircut and trimmed beard. He stood in front of the mirror, admiring his reflection and feeling a newfound sense of confidence. However, as he continued to observe himself, a wave of sadness suddenly enveloped him. This is how I used to look before I became homeless, he thought, his eyes welling up with tears. Rachel noticed the sudden change in Frank's demeanor and approached him with concern. "Hey, are you okay?" she asked softly, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. Frank wiped away his tears and managed a small smile. "Yeah, I'm fine. It's just. I never realized how much I had lost until now," he said, his voice trembling slightly. Rachel nodded empathetically. "I understand. But remember, this is just the beginning. You can get back on your feet and have a better life again," she said, offering him a supportive hug. Frank felt a glimmer of hope in his heart, grateful for Rachel's words of encouragement. "Thank you," he said, feeling a renewed sense of determination to turn his life around. As they sat together, sipping coffee, Frank shared his story with Rachel, explaining how he ended up on the streets. Rachel was moved by Frank's narrative and realized how many people like him could be struggling on the streets. She pondered how she could use her time productively, now that she wasn't returning to the salon. She wasn't that skilled yet and still on probation. Looking at Frank, an idea struck her. "Mr. Nash," she said, "I know this might be unconventional, but would you like to join me in going around and offering haircuts to those in need?" Frank, with plenty of time on his hands, agreed. Rachel and Frank approached their first customer for their new initiative, a homeless man named Mark, who happened to be a longtime friend of Frank. As they approached Mark, he was taken aback and surprised to see Rachel with Frank, as he didn't initially recognize Frank due to his neat appearance. "Hey, Mark, how's it going?" Frank greeted him warmly. Mark was astonished. "Frank, is that really you?" Frank laughed and replied, "Yeah, man, it's me. Listen, Rachel and I are starting a new project, and we thought you might be interested." Mark looked skeptical and asked, "What kind of project?" Rachel chimed in, "We're giving free haircuts to homeless people in the area." Mark's eyes widened in surprise. "Wow, that's really kind of you guys. Most people just ignore us or avoid us altogether." "We're not most people," Frank said with a grin. "So, what do you say? Want a trim?" Mark hesitated for a moment before finally nodding his head. "Sure, why not? Can't remember the last time I got a haircut." Rachel and Frank exchanged excited looks as they began setting up their makeshift salon. This marked the beginning of what they aspired to be, a meaningful and impactful endeavor. As they toiled, they made a surprising discovery. Many of these individuals who were experiencing homelessness were skilled professionals who had encountered difficult circumstances. They encountered former engineers, chefs, and even a former lawyer. Inspired by the resilience and talents of these individuals, Rachel began sharing their stories on social media, aiming to raise awareness about the issue of homelessness. To her astonishment, the posts went viral, and soon social media users from all over started donating funds to support their cause. With these financial resources, Rachel and Frank expanded their outreach. They not only offered haircuts but also provided job training, resume building, and networking opportunities to the homeless individuals they encountered. Their determination was unwavering, and their goal was to assist people in rebuilding their lives. In just under 2 months, Frank and Rachel achieved remarkable progress in their mission to aid the homeless. Generous donors and their tireless efforts allowed them to help many individuals in need. The work also transformed Frank's life. He was no longer living on the streets and found a newfound sense of purpose. Recognizing Frank's dedication and hard work, Rachel offered him a place to stay and assistance with their growing charity. Together, they made a decision to establish a non-profit organization dedicated to supporting the homeless community. The Trinity, as it was named, gained rapid momentum, attracting more volunteers and donations each day. Rachel's passion and leadership skills naturally positioned her as the organization's leader, while Frank assumed an administrative role, ensuring the charity remained true to its mission of helping individuals regain their independence. Together, they continued making a positive impact on the lives of those who had encountered difficult times. One peaceful afternoon, Frank and Rachel found themselves lounging on the park's grassy lawn, enjoying a moment of tranquility. Frank wore a content smile on his face as he reflected on his work. "This kind of work reminds me of my days in the Marines," he said, his voice filled with pride. "I enjoy being part of a team and collaborating with genuinely loyal individuals." Rachel sat next to him, her demeanor appearing more subdued than usual. Frank noticed this change and grew concerned. "Is everything okay, Rachel?" he asked. Rachel took a deep breath, gathering her courage before confiding in Frank. "Actually, my father was killed when he served in the Marines," she revealed, her voice soft and trembling with emotion. Frank's expression softened as he reached out to comfort her. "I'm so sorry, Rachel. That must have been incredibly difficult for you." Rachel nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "It was, but talking to you about it actually helps. It's not something I usually talk about." Frank nodded in understanding. "I get it. It's not easy to open up about something like that, but I'm here for you, Rachel. You can always talk to me." Rachel managed a small smile through her tears, feeling grateful for Frank's kind words and support. "Thank you, Frank. That means a lot." Since Rachel's father passed away, she had been seeking connections with people who had served in the Marines. She believed that listening to their stories would evoke memories of her father's pride and eventually help her overcome her grief. What Frank didn't know was that when Rachel first saw him, she recognized him as a former Marine based on his behavior and mannerisms. Their friendship deepened, strengthened by their shared experiences and their shared commitment to making a positive impact in the world. They knew that together they could accomplish great things and help many people in need. As Rachel and Frank walked home from work one day, they happened to pass by the hair salon where Frank had been denied a haircut. Memories flooded back, and Frank couldn't help but stop and look at the place. "Remember this place?" Frank asked, a smile spreading across his face. "Of course I do," Rachel replied with a grin. "This is where it all began." Just then, Olivia stepped outside and saw Rachel and Frank standing there. She looked at Rachel with a sneer and turned to address Frank. "Is this woman bothering you, Mr. Nash?" Rachel was taken aback by Olivia's hostility and looked at Frank with a puzzled expression. "Not at all, Olivia," Frank said with a smile. "In fact, Rachel is the new owner of the salon." Olivia's face fell as she realized what was happening. The man she had previously kicked out of the salon was the same man who had purchased it. She felt embarrassed and ashamed of her behavior towards Frank, and Rachel could see the guilt written all over her face. Olivia hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I'm sorry for how I treated you before, Mr. Nash," she said and quickly went back inside, unsure of whether to stay or leave. Rachel was taken aback by the unexpected turn of events. It turned out that Frank and some of his fellow charity workers had been searching for a hair salon that would cater to everyone, regardless of their background or financial situation. They had come across the struggling owner of the salon who expressed her willingness to sell. Frank and his team saw this as an opportunity and decided to give the salon to Rachel as a token of appreciation for her hard work and dedication. When Frank shared the news with Rachel, she was overwhelmed and couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You guys bought me a hair salon," she exclaimed. "Yes, we did," Frank confirmed with a grin. "It's all yours, Rachel." Tears of joy streamed down Rachel's face as she tightly hugged Frank. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Thank you so much." Frank patted her back and said, "You deserve it, Rachel. You've been working hard, and we wanted to show our appreciation. We hope this will help you achieve your dreams." Rachel smiled through her tears, feeling a renewed sense of purpose and excitement. She was grateful for the support and encouragement she had received from Frank and the charity workers. As the group stood outside the newly acquired salon, they watched as workers put up a brand new sign that read, "Rachel's." Rachel felt a sense of pride and accomplishment as she gazed at the sign, realizing that her dream was finally coming true. "I can't believe this is happening," Rachel said, her voice trembling with emotion. "It's real, Rachel," Frank reassured her. "And it's all yours." Rachel couldn't stop smiling as she walked toward the salon's entrance, her heart bursting with excitement. "I want to offer free haircuts to all the homeless people in our community," she declared, anytime they need it, no questions asked. The group looked at each other, all nodding in agreement. "I'm not surprised at all," Frank said, smiling. The charity continued to grow, and Frank finally found his purpose in life. He learned to navigate the civilian world, had a place to call home, and a job he loved, helping people in need. Frank and Rachel's charity had brought hope to the homeless, demonstrating that a little kindness can make a significant difference.